this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's up, y'all? I'm Bud Elliott, and this is the Cover 3 College Football Podcast. It's my summer school series where we try to rip through as many D1 teams as we can. And today, it's Louisville. I'm heading to the Authority. That's Cardinal Authority with my man, Jody Demling. Jody, what's going on, man?
Not much. I always look forward to it. It gets me, kind of gets my juices going for a little football when we talk about it. And then we know it's right around the corner. And it is kind of wild that we're here going into year 3 of Coach Jeff Brom. And we've done this the last couple years. And we kind of were spot on the first 2 years. Let's see if we can get some good stuff now.
Let's see. You have been really good at this. So last year, 9 wins. Another nice season. I mean, honestly, things could have gone a little bit better. They could have made the ACC championship game. If some things maybe earlier in the season had changed around just a little bit. What's the general vibe in the program about this season and the direction?
I think honestly, when you really look back last year, the way they finished, it could have been a lot better, but it could have been worse as well, because they finished where they lost at Stanford. And that was like that one of those games, kind of the one game in the 2 years of the Jeff Brom era that you really just kind of scratch your head and go, how in the world did they lose that game? And still watching it, it's like, I don't know how they lost that game. They should have won it. Then they come back and they bounce back and they win 3 games to end the season. And, they beat Kentucky along the way. And then they hold on in the bowl game when they didn't have hardly anybody playing in that bowl game, and they still hold on and beat Washington on the last second, 2-point pass breakup in the end zone. So, it could have been a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse last year as well. And I think the vibe going into it is that everybody's excited. I mean, this is a fan base that Jeff Brom, hey, first year he took them to the ACC championship game. Second year they win 9 games. They go on a run at the end and they beat Kentucky to get that kind of rivalry back going again. This is a fan base that's pumped up. I mean, we saw it in basketball, the revival, as Coach Kelsey calls it in basketball, and Coach Brom just kind of feeds right into it. And what he's done in the portal all 3 of these years, I think really, really has people excited.
So let's talk offense here. Obviously, Jeff Brom's baby is this offense. You lose Tyler Shuck to the NFL, and he had a very nice year. They go get Miller Moss. Has Coach Brom or anybody on staff either talked publicly or told you guys kind of what they saw in Miller Moss? What do you think he does for this offense?
Well, first of all, they saw him throw 6 touchdowns against them in a bowl game 2 years ago, and that's when the first kind of this Miller Moss guy, kind of thing. But no, I mean, what Jeff has done with quarterbacks in his time, going all the way back to Purdue and a couple of the guys that they've put into the league. And then you've got, Jack Plummer the first year here at Louisville, and then Tyler Shuck and how he kind of, went up the draft boards and after this season, that I think it's just one of those things you're going to see that Coach Brom's going to go try to get the guy that they feel like fits the system, the guy that they feel comfortable with, and just roll with it. This one's interesting because you watched Tyler Shuck last year, you watched Jack Plummer the year before, you watched the guys at Purdue even, and then you watch Miller Moss and you're like, he's different. You know what I mean? He's not as big. He's maybe, I'd say, a little bit faster, definitely going to run the ball a little bit more, but that's not really kind of what Jeff wants. He wants to drop back and sling it down the field. And I was really impressed with Miller in what he could do. I don't know what I expected going into spring, but what they've kind of said, what Coach Brom has said, and Brian Brown, the offensive coordinator, is when they saw Miller, they saw a guy that could take command of this offense. They saw a guy that can be really, really talented and make a huge jump this year, kind of like Tyler did last year. Now, they're not saying he's going to, go, be in the second round, potentially, people talking about him late first round and early second round pick, but they're very confident in what he can do. And they're very confident in what they're putting around him as far as the offense is concerned. And I think that's the biggest thing this year, going into the season, is I think the commodity of weapons, or we know what he's got around him. Last year, it was a little bit of an unknown. You had a transfer back in Donald Chaney. You had a true freshman in Isaac Brown that they thought was going to be good, but was going to take time, and some other backs who were good, but didn't maybe have all of the reps that they needed. And boom, Isaac Brown ends up being ACC freshman of rookie of the year kind of thing. And so this year you've got a deep backfield, you've got some really good offensive linemen, and he's rebuilt wide receiver and totally rebuilt the tight end room to make it more weapons for Miller around him.
All right, so let's talk about those pass catchers. A lot of college fantasy players watch these. Who are we drafting? How high? Like, is there going to be one receiver who's just an absolute stud and gets the vast majority of the targets?
It's going to be interesting because Colin Lacey was the dude last year, in my opinion, going into the season. I mean, they were talking so high about him. Ja'Cory Brooks ended up being that guy for Louisville because Colin Lacey was injured, broke his collarbone in a scrimmage 2 weeks before fall camp ended. He missed the first 4 games of the season, played against Notre Dame, played 4 games, and then decided he's like, you know what, I'm going to redshirt. And we all thought he was going to leave. He was going to do something else. Well, he ends up coming back. He played in the bowl game, had a great bowl game. That obviously didn't count against last year, and now he comes back for this year. He's going to be really solid. Chris Bell is a guy who has been around here this will be his 4th season. He's kind of the down the field kind of guy. He actually was one of the guys that worked out on Pro Day with Tyler Shuck, and I know there was a lot of chatter from the NFL scouts about Chris Bell and what he was able to do and the build, and that he's just a big guy, 220-pound guy who can get up and get after it. So those 2 guys are really talented. Those 2 guys have been here and know the system, and they've been through spring with Miller. Now, within the last couple of weeks, they got Dakari Collins, from NC State, who started his career at Clemson, and they got Trayshawn Hurry from San Jose State, who they think both of these guys are going to be guys that are going to be able to step right in and be big-time receivers. That gives you 4 weapons at receiver to go with Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. The Duke Watson is the other true freshman. Isaac Brown was ACC freshman of the year, but Duke Watson actually led the nation in yards per carry. That's overall everybody. So you got those 2 guys. Then you got the 4 receivers. There's just a lot of weapons around him, and I think it's going to be spread out this year a little more than maybe what it's been in the past.
Let's talk this run game. What do we think about the offensive line and with the backs? Are we going Isaac Brown? Are we going Duke Watson? Do we think anybody can kind of pull ahead and become the featured guy only?
I think those 2 guys are really, really close. I did find it funny towards the end of spring ball. Chris Barclay, the running back coach, said, nobody's asking me about the 3rd guy, and he's actually had the best spring camp of all of them, and that's Kewan Brown. And Kewan Brown is a guy who's been now here in his 3rd year. He actually went into the portal. I think it was Boise State is where he was going. He had already committed and then decided he wanted to come back to Louisville. So he came back to Louisville, and it's a kind of a 3-headed monster. They kind of like that. Jeff Brom, for whatever, I'm not sure. It's worked. Jawar Jordan and Isaac Garendo the first year. Last year, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, Donald Chaney did his a little bit, and he left. He was finished, and so they kind of like the running back committee. And the offensive line is a pretty solid group up front. I think they're going to be better than what they were last year. They lost some guys, and Michael Gonzalez was a tackle who played a lot last year for them. But you've got a center, Pete Nigra, who is in his 2nd year in the system. And then you've got some other guys. And they brought in 6 guys on the offensive line from the transfer portal. And I think that's just a thing where they're just going to they wanted to make sure that they could have a couple deep, because the last couple of years they've had an injury on that offensive line. And, it's really kind of taken its toll towards the middle end of the season, and they don't want that to happen this year.
Let's go ahead and identify a guy on offense who, and can't say quarterback, but if this guy hits his ceiling, maybe it's a guy who's like finally hits its ceiling. Like, we're just kind of been waiting on it, or maybe it's a guy who, look, oh, whoa, he kind of got here a year before we expected him to hit that ceiling. Somebody who could really change the trajectory of this offense, maybe take it to the next level.
I think it's Chris Bell. Last year, I think we talked about, I was like, I don't want to mention a freshman, but if Isaac Brown obviously went beyond his ceiling last year. And look, the expectations for that running game are really, really high, but I think Chris Bell is probably the guy to me. Last year, 43 catches, he averaged like 17 and a half yards a catch. But he only had 4 touchdowns, 43 catches, 737 yards, but only 4 touchdowns. In his career, he only has 6 touchdowns in his career. But I think it's over now. I think it's like 74 catches in 6 touchdowns in his career. And for a guy who's going to get targeted a lot, I think that's the guy that he's going to have to, if they're going to be really, really good, he's going to be a guy that's going to work himself into being a, second, third day NFL draft kind of thing. He's got the body, he's got the size, the ability. He's just going to have to work himself into that. He's a guy, and I had a long conversation with him, and a thing that I did towards the end of spring ball. And he said, look, I've grown a lot because his emotions. He got the first year, he got a bunch of 15-yard penalties. The second year, Coach Brom's first year, he didn't get as many, but he still got a bunch of them. And then last year, he really kind of worked on himself. He's got a lot of emotion and shows it out on the field, and it's a good thing in a lot of ways. But he does get some penalties, and I think that he can cut back on that, and he can cut up. He can get more touchdowns. He's going to get more targets. I just think he's the guy on offense that is going to be really, really talented for them this year.
All right, Jody, let's hit a break. On the flip side, we'll talk a little Cards defense.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, guys, we are back here on the Cover 3 College Football Podcast Summer School Edition. Talking a little Louisville, and that's, of course, Jody Demling of Cardinal Authority. So Ron English defense last year, pretty aggressive, productive, do have some major losses up front and in the secondary. Dealer's choice. Where are you more confident that they can replace the guys they lost?
Up front, they've got some guys up front. They've brought some guys in. They brought a guy. They brought in Devon Clowney from Charlotte, who was there for a little bit in spring and then opted to go elsewhere. And a lot of it was because of the rotation. They've got some guys in the middle, especially, and some guys that can really do some things. Jordan Gerard is a guy who was around last year, and Renee Conga, former transfer from Rutgers. They're 2 really big, physical veteran guys that'll be in the middle and kind of the leaders of that line. Ashton Gelati on the edge is going to be a tough guy to replace. They've got a number of guys that they will continue to kind of rotate and try to do it. They picked up a couple of late additions. As far as transfer portals, Justin Beatles is a guy that he was one of the last guys that they picked up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, New Mexico State for him. And so they've been trying to continue to make sure they've got enough bodies. I think they do. They've got 16 or 17 guys for the 4 spots up front. They like to rotate guys. They like to get guys in there for a number of reps and just continue to rotate guys. And I think you'll see that more so this year. I'm a lot more confident. To me, they have the ability and the depth up front, to whereas the secondary, I think they've got the ability, but it's the depth that I worry about.
Makes sense. All right. So in the secondary, which positions do we feel the best about?
I think the safety positions you've got to feel the best about. D'Angelo Hutchinson is a guy who's been around. He's a guy who has made a lot of plays for them. Antonio Watts is a guy who made the ridiculous play at the end of the bowl game last year in the Sun Bowl. It looked like the 2-point conversion was going to be completed in the corner of the end zone for Washington. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just jumps up and gets his hand on the ball and knocks it down. He's that hybrid guy. Some people call him a linebacker. He's more of a safety, really, than anything. He's a veteran guy, and he's played a lot. Actually, in the Clemson game, Clemson game last year, Ben Perry was his. They kind of rotated, and Ben Perry got hurt really early in the game and got taken out, didn't come back in that game. And I think Watts ended up with like 95 of the 105 snaps. So he's a guy that can play a lot. He's a very good athlete. And so they've got some proven commodities there. It's the cornerback position where they've brought guys in. They have guys out of the portal, that they brought in so far this year, and they like what they've got. And I think the one interesting one to me is a kid from Southern University, and you don't hear that very often transferring up, that far, into Power 4 from Southern. But Rodney Johnson is going to make a big difference. He is a big, physical guy, 6'2", about 210. And when you see him, he's. I mean, it's hard to miss him because he makes a presence. His presence felt. And I guess that's my thing though. The corner position. Safety, I feel good. And again, not a ton of depth. D'Angelo Hutchinson, JoJo Evans, and then Watts playing that hybrid thing. But the corner position is the one I just feel a little worried about as far as who is going to do the most. Justin Agu's a guy that they brought in. Ramon Mosby was a true freshman last year. He's going to have to play a lot. He did in the bowl game, and he's going to have to play a lot, this year for them to be good. That's where Jabari Mack is another name. He came from UAB. But that's where, to me, it's almost a little worrisome. It's not about almost. It is a little worrisome to me, is just the depth in the secondary. And I know they like what they've got. It's just a matter of, knock wood, you can't get anybody hurt. In the last couple of years, that's where they've had injuries.
They do get to ease into it a little bit with this schedule before playing I think the back half of this schedule is far tougher than the front half, at least to my eye. Non-conference of Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, Bowling Green. Not just going to sit here and read the entire schedule to the audience at home. I'm sure in post-production we'll have it there on the screen. But how do you define success for Louisville this season?
You didn't mention 8 home games this year, just the second time in school history, 8 home games. And when you think about it, you've got Clemson at home. You've got Kentucky at home to end. I don't know. It's one of those weird, it's just one of those weird things with the schedule. I'm not sure how they did it. It's the second time it's happened. But it's crazy. And you mentioned the first 3 games. This is the second year in a row, and they don't like this at all. And I don't blame them. You play 2 games and have a bye week. It's like, whoa. I mean, that's a tough one. You play 2 games bye week, and then you've got another bye week, down towards the latter part of the season. So, that really, when you look at this team, when you look at this Louisville football team, and you think about what they have to do, the game at Pitt is always tough for Louisville. They could have the best team, they could have the worst team. It's going to be a competitive game. Remember, they were undefeated in Jeff Brom's first year. They went there, and that's the game. Renato Brown, the right tackle, blew his knee out in pregame warmups, and everything just kind of unraveled that night. It just wasn't their night, so they lost that game. So the 4th game this year is at Pitt. It's always tough. Louisville's never played in the ACC. This is another oddity. I don't know how this. I guess they blame this one on COVID, although you blame everything on COVID. This Louisville is playing at Virginia Tech for the very first time since they've been in the league, and they've been in the league for over 10 years now. So it's kind of weird how in the world have they not played at Virginia Tech, but they're playing there for the first time, and then at SMU the second to last week of the season. So really, when you think about it, and I missed the Miami game, and that's always a big, Louisville and Miami is great. There's so many Miami kids, there's so many Florida kids on this team. They've actually had a lot of success, when they go to Miami. So those are the 4 games. But I think when you really look at it, the Pitt and SMU games kind of bookend are the ones that they're gonna tell you how good Louisville really is. And if they can win both of those games, I feel pretty confident about what they can do. I mean, not only do they have, I don't want to, no disrespect to some teams out there, but not only do they have 8 home games, but the home games are Virginia, Boston College, Cal, Clemson, and Kentucky, and then 3 non-conference. I mean, they get a little, to me, they get a little bit of a break. You don't have to see Florida State this year. Carolina and, Wake, Carolina and NC State. I mean, those have always given them more trouble. They've had good success against Boston College and Virginia. And I think that, they feel good about those matchups. So I think the success is looking at the 8 wins and thinking, man, this team, we can get to 10 wins. I mean, it's kind of crazy to really think about that, but that's the way the schedule sets up.
We've been watching the entire way, reading Cardinal Authority. Jody, I've enjoyed this, man. I learned a lot about Louisville. I always appreciate the time.
Yep. Thanks, bud.